Early in my career as a personal trainer, I felt confident that I could teach you how to do a perfect squat, or that I could program a workout that would challenge you without destroying you, and that I could create an atmosphere for clients that helped them feel welcome and confident. But those things alone did not qualify me to run a business. When I opened my gym, my love for fitness and ability to coach were never in question. And those things definitely mattered, but they weren't what kept me up at night. It was the scheduling software that kept crashing, or the payroll that I had to figure out, or the marketing that I had no idea how to do. And then there were the financial decisions. I didn't know what I was doing. What I did have was a deep passion for creating a space where people felt welcome. And I also had and still have an unwavering commitment to learning. My guest today is Kate Boyle. She was a former elite level dancer who loved movement, wanted to help people feel better in their bodies, and opened her Pilates studio 16 years ago. But loving what you do and building a sustainable business are two very different challenges. Kate has not only survived for 16 years in an industry where most people don't make it past 5, she's thrived. She's expanded online, added retreats, built a loyal client base that keeps coming back, and maintained her passion without burning out. She's a nutritionist, a food scientist, Pilates instructor, and fellow podcaster who's figured out how to evolve without losing what made her business special in the first place. But before we get to chatting with Kate, every episode kicks off with our listener question in a segment called Hey Coach. So, what would you ask if you had a business coach in your back pocket? Submit your question to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com. Hey Coach, I love my small, intimate studio culture, but I am maxed out on capacity and energy. Is it possible to grow without losing that personal touch that makes my business so special? Kate, welcome.
Hi, Leslie. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you here. And can you tell us where you are calling in from?
Melbourne, Australia.
Melbourne, Australia. I have to say that a really unexpected perk of starting this podcast was that I have gotten to meet people from all over the world, and I just couldn't have anticipated that.
I'm the same. And it's really funny with like time zones and stuff because often we're in front of nearly everybody else in the world. So it's everyone's like, oh, you're time traveling into the future.
Oh yes. What can you tell us? What
Well,
can we anticipate?
it's not much better here. It's still the same.
Oh, oh, geez. Okay. So, the US doesn't, there's not some massive improvement in the US that happens in 12 hours or so?
Unfortunately, not. I just read the news this
Mm.
morning and yeah, it's still another shock. So we'll have to
Huh.
wait and see.
All right, Kate. Well, I have really thought you'd be reporting with better news, but we'll stick to the topic at hand then.
Sounds good.
So, can you just talk through your journey from dancer to business owner and just kind of the evolution?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said before, originally I started off in dance and, that was my passion. I loved it. But unfortunately, at 16, I tore the meniscus in my knee. And, I needed surgery. It was, quite a bad injury. And on top of that, I had some lower back pain. I'd had torn a hamstring, torn ligaments. And so it kind of just got to a point where I'd been offered a scholarship to go full time, but I knew my career would be plagued by injuries. And I talked to people in the industry and they kind of said, look, you can still have a career, but it's probably not going to be what you want because being
Mm.
injured at such a young age is a liability and people are going to be aware of this when they're hiring you. So I said, "Oh, okay. All right. Let's, think about this and change course." And being a dancer and food and nutrition being a really big thing, and back in the late 90s as I was growing up, it was a completely different mentality when it came to nutrition. You were eating for, everything was low fat and we didn't even think about sugar and all that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, well, I'm really interested in nutrition. I know I'm not fueling myself properly because I'm a dancer. I'm definitely under eating, which is
Yeah.
probably part of the reason I was getting so many injuries, which I know
Yes.
from, later on.
Yeah.
But I went off to university, studied nutrition and food science. And when I came out, it was really hard to get a full time job. And
Mm.
so I was teaching dancing part time while I was at uni. And one of my girlfriends said, why don't you go off and do the Pilates course? I've just done it. you've got a movement background, you've got a teaching background, you've done it before, you're through dance. I thought, okay, I'll do this. And I had a full time job as a nutritionist. And I was doing this in the evenings and on the weekends. And I just loved learning about Pilates and I
Mm.
healed my own body. I healed all my injuries. And I thought, there's something here. Like, I can work with other people and help them heal themselves. And coming
Yeah.
from a dance background where it was like, go hard, be perfect. And then coming into Pilates and it was like, slow down, connect to
Mm.
your breath, think about your movement, be present. It
Yeah.
was, a mindset shift and a body shift. And so I ended up migrating into the Pilates field, still keeping nutrition on the side. And, as you mentioned before, worked in different studios, worked overseas, and then opened my own Pilates studio just over 16 years ago.
Wow. So I mean, I've done Pilates at several different times throughout my life. Sometimes I've done mat Pilates, sometimes reformer. I understand how challenging it is, but I feel like maybe there's a bit of a misconception about Pilates being a little like woo woo or easy. And I would just love to know, what is it about the movement of Pilates that you feel is so beneficial, especially if you're coming, in from, a background of injury?
I think it's the fact that it's meant to be. It's meant to be, it's not always now, but a fully integrated movement system. So when
Mm.
someone comes into my studio, I am doing a postural assessment. I'm looking at how they walk. I'm looking how they sit and stand. So we're looking at the biomechanics of the body. And then when we're doing the exercises, we're learning about connecting our breath and how our diaphragm moves. So it's integrating our nervous system as well as our movement together and then working with the body as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, okay, so you decided that you were going to open your own Pilates studio. What was sort of the first step that you took in that process?
Well, I think, you have to kind of rewind before that. I'd spent about 4 years working at other studios,
Mm.
and I always knew at the end of the day, with all my jobs leading up to that point, I'd basically been, a subcontractor, except my nutrition position where it was, full time sitting at a desk all day, which I
Hmm.
found was not for me. I'm not
Yeah.
a sit at the desk 9 till 5. And so each time each year I worked out, I would look at their systems, I would look at how they'd integrate with their clients, how they'd follow up, what they'd teach, and I'd take away, this is great, this is a great system. When I open my studio, this is what I in. This is not working so well. How could we improve that when I open mine? So I think
Mhm.
from the very start, I knew that I wanted to have control of my own career, of my work day. And that's why I wanted to open my own studio. And I spent that time working at other studios, getting that experience and learning from others to know what would work well. And then
Mhm.
obviously trial by error when it actually came to opening the studio a little bit too.
Yeah. And did you start teaching everything on your own? Did you start with any staff?
Well, I had a year overseas. So I used to teach classes at the local community center and I'd build up, maybe a clientele of about 30 or 40 clients. And
Mm.
then I got the option to work over in Switzerland for 6 months, which I thought, in my 20s, why not, way to travel. And then I was working with sort of the rich and famous, and a number of clients then offered me if I'd go teach for them privately after
Mm.
that. So I went for another 6 months to work for someone privately. So I was away for a year, but whilst I was away for that year, I was still emailing my community clients saying,
Yeah.
"This is what I'm up to. I am planning on coming back. When I come back, I'm gonna open my own studio." And when I came home, I was home for 2 weeks before I opened everything up. It was all quick because it was all planned.
Wow. Yeah.
But what I did was I built slowly. So I had, one piece of each equipment and I reached out to the studios I'd been teaching at before I went away and I said, "Hey, I'm back. Have you got a few shifts for me?" And
Mm.
obviously contacted my community clients. And so built alongside working for other people as well as opening my own. And then slowly, as I got more clients, I left those other places and I got more equipment. So I really grew over time with my class offerings, as I got more and more clients.
Yeah. And okay, this may be I'm going to jump around a little bit, but I would love to understand what your business model looks like today And then my
And
follow-up question to that is going to be, is it what you predicted or anticipated it was going to look like?
okay, well, let's start with the second one first.
Okay, okay.
Originally my plan was to open this studio, have classes running, and then so my studio is at home. So when we built our
Mm,
house, we built it with a separate entrance on a corner block. The studio is completely locked off from the house. So again, that was all very intentional because looking at spaces to hire was very expensive. So
yeah.
16 years ago, nobody was really working at home. It was, a
Right.
little bit odd, to go to a Pilates studio, in a suburban area. Anyway, so my plan was eventually to move out of home, have a big clinic, have different modalities, have massage and osteo, run different workshops, different types of classes. So go really big. That was my
Yeah.
original plan. And then, leading up to when I had children, so I think your life goals change when you have children, and I
Yeah,
realized
I do.
how beneficial it was to be at home. I
Yeah.
could teach a class, pop back in, breastfeed my daughter, teach another class, come back in, put the washing on, and having that freedom and flexibility whilst being a young mum was not
Mhm.
something that I really wanted to give up. And
Yeah.
I realized how much it was, really beneficial. And then looking at, numbers and doing the sums, paying to hire a space, paying to get more staff, having to run multiple classes literally just to pay rent. This sort of, weighing up the costs versus the benefits really wasn't going to work out. And
Yeah.
then we had COVID hit as well. So,
Yes, I remember, yeah.
yes, that was another thing. And Melbourne, we were the longest lockdown city in the world. So
I
we
remember, yeah.
yeah, my studio was closed for 11 months. 11 months.
Wow. With zero openings even temporarily, it was closed for 11
It
months.
was pretty much closed. There would be 1 week we'd be able to open with everybody wearing face masks, and then the next week we'd be back in lockdown.
Yeah.
And it just got really hard, but I was very,
Mhm.
very thankful that I wasn't paying rent for a studio space that I wasn't
Yes.
able to use. So then going through all that, I was like, yeah, definitely really happy to stay at home, keeping that sort of smaller thing. And just prior to COVID hitting in 2019, I'd started to go online. So rather than getting a studio space and expanding in person, I thought I can expand my business, but let's go online and almost move away from that sort of dollar for hours transaction.
Mhm.
I wanted to
Mhm.
be able to help people, but not feel like it was every hour, like in the studio, so, yeah, so rather than expanding in, physical form, I expanded online, which was, almost perfect timing when COVID hit because then we had online class offerings already in place when
Yeah.
we weren't able to open.
See, you can see the future.
I think I
Just
got
own it.
lucky.
Yeah. No, that I mean, that really is amazing because it's not like online didn't exist at all before COVID, but, like, to be able to be just, like, one step ahead, I'm sure gave you a huge advantage.
It really did because a lot of studios, we have like, a Melbourne group where people were meeting up online and trying to work out tech and what's this Zoom thing and how are you going to set up the camera? And because a lot of instructors had never done any of this before,
Right.
it was all
Right.
completely new. And if you're not a tech person, it's sometimes not the easiest thing to kind of get your mind around and turn
Mhm.
it around so quickly because, I think a lot of people thought too, we'd be closed for 2 weeks and then it would be back to normal. A lot of people resisted it, but yeah, you really needed to make the change, and if you didn't, you almost got a bit left behind.
Absolutely. I just, recorded an episode with another woman who, her business is a massage therapy practice. But I think it's really interesting because she decided that her way of scaling was to, she's starting to franchise. And and so I just think this is fascinating because I'm having these like parallel conversations where like that is a direction you could go, but for whatever reason, you decided to diversify in a different way. And I would just sort of love to know like how did you come to uh wanting to go online or committing to going online when really, like, you can diversify in so many different ways. Why was that right for you?
Well, I did look at other ways, like, I did look at
Mm.
opening or running the actual teacher training course, but again, looking at time invested versus, income and how much my studio would be need to be used for training instructors, that didn't work out. So when it came
Yes.
to moving online, when you teach people in person, they were always like, "What can I do at home? Can you like write me out a program?" And you do, you write out programs, or you used to write out programs, and they're not easy to follow. Like people are trying to sometimes, they ask me, "What does this mean again? I've forgotten what that exercise is." And so thinking logically through that and having people like, "What can I do? Do you have something that you can give me? Show me a video. I can do it at home." I was like, "Okay,
Mhm.
this makes sense. I'm going to start running." I filmed sort of like a home workout series so people can do their workouts at home. And then we did online classes, and I had a membership for a period of time trying to during that sort of COVID system too, when people wanted different options. So
Mhm.
for me, it was really how can I help my in-person clients? And then
Yep.
how can I diversify my income and sort of my revenue ladder so that if something like this happens again, maybe I injure myself and I can't teach, or maybe I can't get instructors, or, physically, how can I still support myself and keep my business running?
Yeah. I think it's a really smart and important point is that, like, you already have this built-in base of clients that are loyal and they trust you and they are already bought into what you're selling, I guess, for lack of a better term. And so, like, capitalize on them. How else can you provide even more value for them? And then it kind of expands beyond that.
Yeah, exactly. I think listening to what your clients want is really important. Doing surveys with your clients because you
Mhm.
might think, oh, this is a fantastic idea. And you go into all the work of putting it together and then nobody wants it.
Yeah, exactly. Has that ever happened to you?
Um, It's happened in senses that we've tried new things. So a number of years ago, I'm not sure if you know, but bar classes became a really big
Mm.
thing. It was
Mhm.
like Pilates and then go do your bar. So
Yep.
we asked clients and they were really keen on adding in bar classes. So we did the training. I trained up my instructors. We started adding them in, but they just didn't do as well. So,
Mm.
we ran them for a couple of years, but
Yeah.
again, looking at the one studio space we have, we'd be able to run 30, 40, Pilates class a week and we'd run 5 bar classes a week. So weren't able to offer as many time slots. It wasn't for everyone. A lot of
Yeah.
people that were a little bit older, they had sore knees, it was a bit too much. So
Mhm.
it was a good learning curve. It still helped our skill set. But at the end of the day, it just really wasn't for us. So I think,
Yeah.
everybody has those things where they try new things and they just don't work out.
Yeah, but I think you're right because, I mean, definitely happens to me all the time where I wake up and I'm like, "Oh, I know what else I should do." And, like, I've learned to sit with it for a little while for one and not just act because entrepreneurs, we have ideas all the time, and that's great and that's exciting. However, um, you can't always jump at every opportunity that sounds good to you, but also you have to be willing to try things. So I think there's just always that balance to strike.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, like you said, you see other people or other studios doing things. You think, oh, that would be amazing. Like, I'd love to do that. Or I think my clients would love to do that. I always I have to, if I'm going to run with an idea, it kind of has to meet three sort of criteria for me. And one is that, do I feel passionate about it? Like, out of a 10, if it's like, "Oh, I feel a 5," then it's not
Mm.
something that I wanna follow through with. So, I've gotta feel passionate about it. 2, is it viable in the sense of, do I have enough energy? Do I have enough time? Do I have the
Mhm.
money to put behind it? So, it's really gotta be a viable, project. And then the third one is it something my clients want? Does this fit in the stream of what I'm offering? And,
Yeah.
I have to ask clients and see that this is going to be something that they do want from me.
Yeah. And even and I love that. First of all, I love that it's, like, so clear, so simple, and if people can just know what their 3 or whatever, however many, pieces of criteria that things need to meet, like, that's a great process. And still, you tried it because clients said they wanted it, and they still didn't show up as much as it's like you still never know.
That's it. You still gotta take the leap, don't you? Like, at
Really.
the end of the
Yep.
day, you've just gotta try it out, and sometimes, you win and it's great, and other times you have to just put it down as a bit of a learning curve and, take from it, the good bits and move on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so you added the online component, and then what was sort of your next, I guess, inflection point where you expanded into retreats, or did those come first, or how did those fit in?
Well, the retreats actually started before COVID. I ran one late in 2019. And again, that was from we run workshops every now and again in the studio, and people were really enjoying them. And so I floated the idea of a retreat, and people were like, yeah, that would be awesome. And that went really well. And then COVID hit. And so that put a stopper in that. And then
Yeah.
I was actually really scared to run another one for a long time because even for a few years, after that, a lot of people they're still worried about things. People weren't traveling. They weren't coming back as often in person. There was still people being really scared. So I
Yeah.
actually held off on starting those again until last year, 2025. And that was because at that point, people wanted things in person. They were kind of over the online. They wanted those in-person experiences. If they were gonna spend money on things, then they really wanted it to be, value packed and life-changing. And so we went to Koh Samui last year for our Pilates retreat, for a week, and it was amazing. It was a completely immersive experience. I mean, what's not to love about a tropical island with beaches and swimming pools and,
Right.
Pilates. But,
Yes.
from that,
Yeah.
people, it just kind of just come back, I think, that more in-person experiences are what people are wanting, or that's what I'm finding kind of
Mhm.
even online, people are reaching out and asking about things like that now too. So I
Mm.
think it's kind of having its moment, and so that's how kind of retreats sort of came back into the picture as well.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I started an in-person monthly meetup in the fall of last year for female founders, and I was just like, I think this would be cool. Maybe there'll be decent attendance, and it has been like packed every single time, and it's just like people want this, they crave it, and yeah, it's validating to know like, okay, yeah, I think people are just ready to commit to that again.
Yeah, and I think, so many things are offered online now that kind of get an abundance of them. So if you can find something that you can connect to in person, it
Yeah.
all, it feels quite special. And then to have
Mhm.
and especially, in business, if you can make friends with other business owners, it's really sort of nourishing, I think, for your soul, but then also
Mhm.
for your mind because you can go, "Hey, this is what I've been working on," or "Do you know someone you can refer me to help me out with this?" Like, having that network of people is really important.
Yes, it's very important. It's why my motto is running a business alone doesn't have to be lonely. It doesn't have to be. You have to know where to find the right resources.
Yeah, exactly, and, yourself running those types of meetings is, so great for other business owners, being able to find that resource too.
Yeah, exactly. And so, given now that you've diversified in a few different ways, how do you maintain the same level of, I guess, customer service, for lack of a better term, or like intimacy that, you know, you have loyal base of clients and started with a loyal base of clients? Like, how does that translate across all the different business lines?
Well, for me, I think it's always just being honest and real. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not a fluff kind of person. I'm just straight up and direct, which most people find pretty refreshing because I don't have time to, what I
Mhm.
mean, do too many
I
airs
do.
and graces. Like, so I guess being honest and upfront with my clients, having really good systems in place. So,
Mhm.
whether or not it's a new client booking in or it's a client that's following up. We've trained our clients really well. We have a booking system. They know, when they're going to cancel or how to reach out to me and those types of things. So I think it's having systems and also having good people around you. So, I've got a few instructors that teach for me. We're all on the same page. We have really good communication with each other. If they have questions or clients have questions, and they know what to do to follow through for that next step. So
Uh,
systems, good communication, good staff, good friends and
yes.
family that can help you out when you need
Yeah.
help too. And then having boundaries and stuff set in place for myself, which has been hard thing to instill sometimes, being passionate about business, being that type A personality. I always want to help people. And,
Mhm.
sometimes it is at the detriment, or it has been in the past, of myself, which I think
Yeah.
every business owner experiences at some point too.
Yeah. What are can you talk about maybe like one of the hard lessons learned from a boundary that maybe you didn't set strongly enough or you wish you had handled differently?
Yeah, it's definitely earlier on. Being new to business and opening the studio, there wasn't online booking systems really 16 years ago. It really wasn't a thing. So a lot of it was done over the phone, over email and paper. And I didn't have a great cancellation system either. So people would call up, half an hour before class and be like, "Oh, sorry, I've got to pick my daughter up. I can't come to class." And I'd be like, "Okay, great class, take that one off." And then someone wouldn't turn up to class. And so I just can't run a business like this. Like, you think when you've got kids and they sign up for swimming or they sign up for netball, they sign up for the term. And as a parent, you pay for the term. And if they're sick and they miss a lesson, they miss the lesson. Like, it's just part of it.
Yes.
So I didn't, instill that to that sense because we run all year, but I did put in a 24-hour cancellation policy, and we're really strict on it being the 24 hours. And then we changed communication because people were texting me at 1 in the morning, or 4 a.m. when they were getting up for work. And even when you have your phone on silent, it can still buzz, or you wake up and you look at your phone. You've got 6 messages from people saying, "I need to cancel this date in 4 months' time," or I've got feeling like I might be coming down sick. Should I cancel class?
Yeah.
So again, retraining clients and creating systems where they could cancel a class or leave me a
Yeah.
message without it coming to me directly was another big thing
Yeah.
that we put into place too. And again, it's
Yeah.
all learning curves.
Yeah.
You don't know this stuff until you're in the thick of it.
Because you don't think that people are going to do that.
No, you
You
don't
do.
because I wouldn't do that, but
I
that
wouldn't do
doesn't
it
mean
either.
doesn't mean other people won't do that. So yeah.
Quick pause. I was that kid in school whose notes everyone wanted to borrow before the test. Color coded, organized, the whole deal. I'm still doing it, but now for entrepreneurship instead of AP Bio. My Substack is basically me sharing my notes with you. The podcast gives you the big ideas. My Substack shows you how to implement them. Step by step guides, templates, and real stories from the trenches. Subscribe for free at leslieboyce.substack.com. That's LESLIEBOYCE. And let's take this from theory into practice. Because knowing you should hit the gym and actually getting there to do the reps are two very different things. There's like this classic story I tell about I had a member of my gym and she was, pretty consistent for probably a year and then she kind of dropped off and then would come back and then she was a little more inconsistent. And then she didn't come in for maybe like 2 months or only came in once or twice. And I got an email from her saying, because it was just like a month to month, you just pay for the month. And um, she sent me an email and saying, you know, Leslie, I haven't been coming in for the last 2 months, and so I'd like you to reimburse me. She was not that nice about it. I'd like you to reimburse me for those 2 months. And I was like, what? That's bonkers. How is this my fault? But
I've
people
had
are. Uh-huh.
Yes, I haven't had many. I've been very, very lucky to not have many clients. But I had one client have a meltdown because we have parking bays in the front of our house for people to park on, and we people had been driving on, had gotten really boggy, so we put some turf down and then put some stakes around the turf to make sure people weren't gonna destroy it because we just paid to put it in. And so she found it really difficult to park in the car park because of the stakes. And so she came in and gave me a serving, even though we have plenty of street park, you can park anywhere.
Yeah.
And give me a serving and then went back out and tried to move her car and came back in and interrupted the class and gave a serving and did it a third time and then still was happy to start the class, so
Oh my
unfortunately,
God.
you do occasionally get those people, and with that client, that was a good lesson. I actually reached out to her and said, "I don't actually feel very comfortable anymore being your Pilates instructor." I actually
Mm.
felt quite threatened, and I'm happy to give you referrals off to other people, but
Mhm.
at this point, I don't think it would be a very conducive relationship for us to keep working together. So, even those things
Yeah.
happen and you have to work out how you're gonna deal with them.
And how did she respond to that?
Well, she was actually really nice, and she came back to me and said, "I apologize for the way I behaved, but I do agree, I understand, your stance, and, yes, I will go elsewhere." So, that wasn't what I was expecting,
No
um,
kidding.
but yeah, sometimes it happens.
It's, in these kinds of industries when you really do build these very close relationships with people, for better or worse, and it can sometimes, and I agree, like, my story was an anomaly, it's not something that would happen often, but it's like if someone was having a bad day and you just happen to be the next person that they see and you say something that they don't like, it's like, I think it was very easy to kind of be the recipient of a lot of emotional, I don't know, dumping ground or something. Yeah, there you go. I like dumping ground. I'm going to go with dumping ground, like a dumpster. Um, Okay. Now I'd love to talk about the nutritionist and food scientist background and how you bring that yet another element into what you do.
Well, as I said, originally that was kind of the field that I was coming from. And
Mm.
nowadays it kind of gets woven in. I've created, a course online that talks about, nutrition, sleep, stress, and movement. So rather than it being sort of one modality, we kind of talk about head to toe health and holistic
Yeah.
wellness because, as if you're only working on your movement, that's great. But a lot of the time, maybe it's our pain, maybe it's our injuries, it's because of inflammation. And that may be coming from our diet or because we're not sleeping. So when we integrate it all together, we tend to get a lot better results. So I've got an online course that kind of encapsulates that. When we're on our retreats, we also talk about nutrition and things too. I'll run workshops in the studio I have done in the past. Like we've done sort of, how to plan out, meal prepping and healthy snacks and all of those types of things. So it kind of gets weaved into what I do, but it's not
Mhm.
maybe the one main standout
Yeah.
of things. But I
Yeah.
think also it does give me a lot of credibility in the sense that when clients are coming in, they'll be doing a class and they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Kate, my doctor said that, I should take turmeric because I'm, having a lot of inflammation. Is this going to be okay? What do you think?" So even though they're coming in for a Pilates class, they're still getting that personalization from me, which only
Yep.
enhances, why people keep coming back.
Yes. Absolutely. What goes on during the retreats? Like what was the schedule like at your retreat last year and when can I sign up for the next one?
Well, this year we're actually going to Vietnam. So I'm super excited about that.
Amazing. How did you choose Vietnam?
Lot of research. So a few people have reached out and said, "How do you choose your Pilates places?" And I'm like, "A lot of research." Sort of funny side story. When I was at uni and I was looking to kind of get a part-time job, I actually applied for a travel agency because I love
Oh.
to travel. I'm really good
Mhm.
with organization, and I actually got the job. So I was like, "Oh well," I kind of, I ended up not taking the job just because where it was positioned and travel and all of that. But I was
Yeah.
like, it's kind of always been travel's been a passion. So when we create the retreats, I always want to make sure that women are one, really going to be a good fit. So we kind of screen people to make sure that, they're going to get along. And then we want to have a really good balance of, yes, we do Pilates, but we want to make it fun. And we want to see, culturally what's happening or, things to see in the area. It's not like we're, just in one place and we're doing
Mhm.
yoga and meditation and Pilates all day. So
Yeah.
when we went to Koh Samui, they're obviously well known for their beaches, and we went to an elephant sanctuary and we did a Thai cooking class. So, and all of the sort of activities are optional extras. So you can do them if you want to do them, but you don't have to feel forced to do them.
Yeah.
And we did paddle boarding and stuff too. So we kind
Hmm.
of mixed it up. So everyone had different options to choose from. And then just daily, we would connect obviously over our meals. We would do Pilates together in the morning. And usually in the evening, we'd either do like a yoga session or a sound healing session or some type of session that would help sort of calm down our nervous systems.
Yeah.
And most of the time in the afternoons, people had free time, so they could go swim by the pool or go down to the local markets or, it was really cute because a few of us would get together and be like, "Oh, well, we all wanted to go shopping. Let's go together." So it was a really lovely way of women, I think, connecting with each other and just creating some space because when you're at home, everything is go, 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 and it's just nice to step away from all that. And even for
Yeah.
me being the host, being able to create that
Mhm.
space for the women and even for myself is just an amazing experience. So I'm very lucky
Yeah.
that people put their trust in me to create a holiday and an experience for them because that's not easy to do either. Like I plan all our
Right.
family trips, but if my husband planned them, I would be like, oh, where are we gonna go, and is this gonna be okay? So, people putting that trust in me, I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, I, there are a lot of people who host retreats, and it's which is amazing. Like, it's definitely something I would love to do down the road. But did you find it difficult to I'm curious how you figured out your pricing on it, and then how wherever you landed with that, did you find it difficult to get people to, actually want to pay for it and understand the value?
Yeah, for sure. It's not if you're looking at adding retreats, I would say definitely have a strong client base to start with. Don't
Mhm.
run a retreat where you're like, I've got maybe say you've got 10 clients in your business and you're like, yeah, I'm going to run a retreat because you're not going to get the conversion like in numbers. So for me, I've got about 100 clients. I've got a big social media following and stuff, but the
Yeah.
majority, we had 6 women go and
Mhm.
5 of them were either clients or sisters or friends of clients. So they were, connected in some way to my current in person base. And I had
Yeah.
one person come from Perth, which is on the other side of Australia,
Mm.
who had been
Mhm.
following me online. So even
Oh,
with, a big social media following, like on Instagram, I've got over 100,000 people that follow me. You've really got to have that connection with people for them to
yeah.
want to have that trust in you and want to spend the amount of money for a retreat. So,
Yeah.
if you're going to add retreats, make sure you've got a really good connection with your clients and that you've got a large pool to sort of draw from. Because
Yeah.
what I did find too is a lot of people, when they found out I was going to run a retreat, were like, oh, that would be amazing. I so want to come. That's going to be so great. Not one of those people were the people that committed to come. So don't also plan a retreat off what someone says, like, can you run a retreat here? Because they probably won't come when it comes down to it at the end of the day. So
That's
when it
right.
came to sort of picking a retreat place, for me, I wanted to make sure that the retreat place had reformers because we teach studio Pilates. So we use the Cadillac and the reformer and
Mm.
the
Mhm.
barrels and things. And I have a lot of clients that have injuries or, they've had a hip replacement or spinal surgery. I didn't want to change what I offer so much that we're all down on mats that they're not used to it, or they feel scared about it. So, again, make sure that you're offering on your retreat things that you're already offering because
Yeah.
otherwise it can be too much of a disconnect as well. So, that sort of
Totally.
continuity. And then
Mhm.
also the place you choose. I had a lot of back and forth, with the place. I had known a few other instructors that had hosted retreats there. They had given great reviews. But even when it came down to pricing and logistics, there was we went to a place for dinner and I'd chosen this place because it was I can't remember the name of the hotel now, but it's where they filmed The White Lotus. So I was like, all right,
Oh,
well, while we're in Koh Samui, it would be amazing to go across to this hotel and the food was
yeah.
amazing and the view was amazing. But to get across there was like 40 minutes in a minibus, which, as the host, I'm the one paying for that, which
Mm.
again, it's not that much money, but it's something else that you're gonna add on, and so there was a few of those sort of things that popped out throughout the retreat that
Mhm.
I'm like, "Okay, that's another sort of expense that you've gotta add on." So,
Yeah.
again, the next time I run it there or then, planning for this next one, I've made sure I've built in more of that and been more aware of those sort of things that can crop up too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, going back to your initial vision for your business and where it was headed in this big wellness space. And it's funny because I actually had a very similar vision. Um, and I'm really glad at this point that I did not go that direction. But is there any part of you that thinks back to that and wishes you had pursued some of that, or plans to maybe resurrect some of those ideas?
Mm, that's a tough one because I think it would be really nice to have, a big space where people could come and get everything, like a one-stop shop for wellness. Like, it
Yep.
sounds amazing. But for me, logistically thinking about it,
Mhm.
having to manage that many people,
Uh-uh.
managing people for me, it's different for different business owners. That's not fun for me. I don't enjoy that whatsoever. I would definitely rather be working with clients, podcasting, learning new things rather than managing people. So uh, that will never be part of my, space now. Like, my ethos has changed. I'd rather present more. I'd rather, talk on stages, help people. But that sort of whole management of a big place and having overheads and the stress of, paying so many different people and rent and yeah, no, it's definitely gone off the radar. Which, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said no, that's the plan, 100%, I'm all in. So, I think time and experience, yeah, gives you a different perspective on things.
And also responding to the, seemingly small steps that you did put in place and following those because they were working and not, staying so tied to this, initial vision.
That's it. And I think that initial vision, look, some of it is definitely going to be like ego, like, oh, it looks so amazing, but when you think about it on day to day, like, how would that affect me and my family? Like, I'm going
Mhm.
to have to travel, that's already one added extra thing. Then I'm going to have to, add in a lot more admin time, which will take away from my teaching. So I'll have to hire more staff. Like, it's just gonna change so much, and at the minute, with the flexibility that I have with, working from home and having that balance of being online, and being able to maybe deliver a course for a period of a few weeks where things might be intense, and then step back when the girls have got a lot of stuff on. Having
Mhm.
that flexibility, I value that a lot more, and I value my time a lot more than I ever used to when I was younger.
Yeah. And I am so with you on the managing people thing. It's
I think a lot of people are, but
I mean, I didn't know what I didn't know. I'll just say that. I have a lot more to say. I just won't say it now. Um, okay, so you seem to uh practice what you preach in terms of maintaining balance and a holistic approach to your health and staving off burnout. I suppose maybe that's impossible to do entirely. Like, how do you do that? What's your intentionality behind it? And do you see this going another 16 years and then some?
hmm. Well, I hope so. I mean, I'm always very much like, if I would want to learn from someone, like, I've had different coaches for different things. I've got my own Pilates instructor. Like, everyone's like, but
Yeah.
you've been teaching for 20 plus years and you have a Pilates instructor. And I'm like, yeah, because she will make me work out harder than what I will
Yep.
in my own workouts. Like, if it's myself, I'll do 6 and she'll be like, okay, give me 15. So, I think practicing what you preach is really important because how can you teach someone if you don't practice it yourself? Like, even in the Pilates method, if you step away and you're not doing your own classes and you're not doing your own practice, when you come to teaching someone, like, you're just like, oh, well, that should be easy. Well, if you remember, it's actually not if you are connected with the method. So I think,
Yeah.
being true, having integrity, practicing what you preach, and part of the reason I teach what I do is because I know it works because I do it
Mhm.
myself.
Uh-huh.
So, it's kinda come from lived experience, and I've had periods where I've had burnout, like, I've had family members pass away, my mum was really ill for a number of years, and I was trying to balance raising little kids, running a business, being present, getting called to the hospital all the time. That was probably the closest point I came to really getting to burnout, and that was
Mhm.
really hard. But there's periods of our lives, what saved me was I still really focused on my sleep. I
Mhm.
ate well when I was, eating. I was eating
Mhm.
well. And I was, as organized as I could be, and I lent on the support system that I had. So I think, getting help from others, keeping things simple, like we eat a really whole foods diet, but it's not fancy. There's no, lots of prep time and stuff. It's just kind of prioritizing it as well. So,
Mhm.
it'll come down to the weekend and I'll be like, okay, well, I need to, either maybe food preps and things for the girls' lunch boxes for the week. It's just making it work, I think. And
Yeah.
I'm very lucky that I have a husband that, we work as a team. So we really
Mhm.
support each other, whether or not it's the housework or running the kids around to things. And so I
Yeah.
think that makes a big difference too.
Yeah. I have a lot of things to follow up with on that, but I think for one, it's like a person has to make their health and their wellness a priority, and that means something different to everybody, but it ultimately comes down to, like, how long do you wanna do this? And how long do how important is your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, and all of that, and are you willing to prioritize it? Because it takes work, and it takes effort, and planning, and all of that stuff. I went through the same thing you were just talking about just last year with my mom, who passed away but was sick for a number of years as well, and, it's really interesting because I was able to kind of, like, come out of the fog eventually and say, "Okay, I've got some energy again to dedicate to my work," which I love doing. And then I looked back and I was like, "It's a miracle I got anything done." And so but when you're in it, you have to at least recognize some of the signs and do what you can, but it's really hard to, when you're in the thick of it to actually, I don't know, have the perspective because you can't.
Yeah, exactly. Well, unfortunately, I'm a bit like you. My mum passed away as well last year. And like you said, it was really hard to get through at the time. And like when I was teaching clients, because you have these relationships with clients and they'd be like, how's your mum doing? And I'd be like, just you can't, So I went, some of the clients that I am, very close with, I actually I sent them a text and I said, just to let you know, my mum has passed away. Please don't
Mhm.
ask me in class because I will lose it, and a few
Yep.
times I did lose it because people would come over and give you a hug and
Yes.
I get emotional just thinking about it now.
I
And
know,
they are
I know, yep.
so lovely having, so lovely having that connection. You're also trying to keep that kind of professional, side going. But people are, they understand that you're going through a tough time. And again, when you are going through that, it was like, okay, any extra things that you're hoping to get done or that they just don't matter. You just get done what you need to get done, and you prioritize your loved ones around you.
Yep.
And you know that it's going to be for a period of time, and that's okay. Like,
Right.
there's different seasons in life. And I think as a business owner, it's really respecting those seasons. And you don't really realize those seasons, I think, until you go through one.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the first child that you have and you realize, "Oh, I've got to, pull back a bit here on my business
Mhm.
because there are other priorities." But yeah, it's hard to find that balance and everyone's a little bit different. But yeah, having those, consistent habits in place that are just basic things that you usually do that you can fall back to. If they're already habit, it's much easier just to keep going with it.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. And I think it's also like I am the same way. Like I'm gonna put on a brave face and I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna because I'm a happy and an optimistic person. And most of the time I was fine. And then there were times that I was not. And it was like, oh yeah, because I'm human. And it was okay for people to see that. And, I think it allows people who have gotten to know you, to know me, and knowing what we're going through to be there for us. And that's really important to them as well.
Yeah, that's it. My clients were amazing. Like, a number of them came to my mum's funeral, and
Mm.
they're the sort of things that you're not expecting. from your clients. Like, I know you
Yeah.
develop a relationship and they see you every week, but, to have that support from them was meant so much. Like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of, a little bit overwhelming to realize that how many people are out there that actually care about you. You don't actually think about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, building those relationships with clients, I think when we're asking before, how do you kind of get people coming back to classes and things? Like you don't go, you're not sort of yes me at the start. You might think, how do I get people to come back to class? But naturally, if you're developing really good relationships with people, they want
Yeah.
to come back because
Yeah.
they want the energy you give. They want to have that connection with you. They want you to ask, how's your mum? How's work going? They love that connection and interaction. And so working with people and their bodies too is pretty
Mhm.
personal. So you do form those close bonds.
Yep. I totally agree. And I'm sorry that you went through that.
Oh, I'm sorry you went through that too, but
No.
it's one of those, it's part of life, isn't it? Like, it's all
I
going to happen
guess.
at some stage. So, but yeah,
I
it's never
know.
fun.
It's never fun. I am totally switching gears because I would also really like to understand how you built your social media following. Very
Mm.
impressive.
A few people have asked me that, and it's one of those things. Um, I don't want to give that cliche answer that it just happened, but I guess I was very intentional at the start with posting consistently. So,
Mhm.
I've probably been on IG since like 2019. And I think I really got most of my numbers come through in like 2022, 2023. So it
Hmm.
definitely wasn't like, oh, we'll post for 3 months and we'll grow to 100,000 people. It
Yeah.
just doesn't happen like that. So I was always very consistent. And then also, I would look at my metrics and look at, okay, what posts are performing well? What do
Mm.
people want to see from me? Okay, then do similar content to that. Also, my sort of niche is pain, rehabilitation, working with people individually or in a small group setting. So rather than it always being like, okay, you can do this exercise to have a flat stomach, or you can do this exercise to make your arms look great, it would be like, how are we going to target hip pain, or how are we going to use this different piece of equipment that not every other Pilates workout is using. So
Mhm.
I guess individualizing what I taught and again focusing on what performed well.
Yeah.
Um, Worked really well. Paying attention to, again, if you were getting shares from a post. Okay, well, that one's obviously really popular. What else do you do that's similar that you can talk about or share or show?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was kind of mainly it and keeping it really consistent. And
Mhm.
then, yeah, I got a few reels and things that kind of went viral. And then once it built from there, yeah, that was kind of it. So,
Yeah.
yeah. No
Yeah.
no
No,
magic no magic secret, unfortunately, that, yeah, you can
oh
just
man.
but yeah,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's the stuff what I'll often find is, like, I'll put something on that I assume everybody will kind of know, and that's the stuff that it gets really popular, a lot of views or a lot of shares. I guess it's thinking about don't assume that people know the basics, in whatever area of business that you're in,
Yeah.
and people like seeing you, and they like
Mhm.
connecting with you. So
Yeah.
earlier on, I did a lot more, like, lives and things. And I think when people can put a face and put a voice to the face and be like, oh, I
Yeah.
can look in their eyes and, she sounds like she knows what she's talking about and she seems really relatable. That really helps too. Which is very hard if you don't want to get in front of the camera at all, which I totally get. Even now, if I didn't have a business, I probably wouldn't be on social media. It's not my thing,
Same. Yes.
and being on there for business, I don't have time to be on there for personal stuff, like, so I'm really only on there for business. And I'm definitely more of an introvert than an extrovert.
Mm.
I don't like showing stuff just for the sake of showing stuff. Like, to me, I don't have time to watch other people do that. So I always think people don't want to watch me do that. But you know what? People do. People
I was
do
gonna
want
say,
to.
I think that's where you're wrong. Yes.
That's it. People actually do want to watch, for me, it's like, how do I work out and what I eat, all the things related around sort of what my business is. So I think,
Mhm.
if you are a bit scared of getting in front of the camera, even if you could just get in front and, talk to them, pretend that you're talking to a friend and start with a
Yeah.
short story and things. Making that connection with people when you're wanting to sell online is very important because
Hmm.
in person, it just happens naturally. You're meeting
Yep.
each other in person, that conversations flows. When you're online, it's a totally different ballgame. If you don't have that know, like, and trust factor, then you're
Yep.
not gonna be able to make it online, and also it takes a lot longer to build that know, like, and trust factor online than it does in
Yes.
person. So, if anybody is maybe has a sort of brick and mortar business and they're looking at going online, what I will say is it takes a lot longer. It took me a lot longer to start to build
Mhm.
things online than what it did in person. So,
Yeah.
just something to be aware of, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to stay the course because most people, I don't know what the, actual number is, but, will be consistent for a period of time and then go, ugh, this is a lot of work and I'm seeing no return on it. I give up. And then there are the others, the small percent that continue and persist regardless of what kind of, return on their metrics they're seeing because it does eventually pay off. But yeah, it takes time.
It takes a lot of
Lot.
time. And I think too, it depends what you're selling. Like, if you have a really high ticket item, and you are connecting with people, and maybe you've got, I don't know, 200 followers, you only need one client to make $5,000. That's fantastic. You don't
Yep.
need 100,000 followers. So it also
Mhm.
depends what your offers and stuff are too, and what your sort of recurrence of potentially the buyers are. Like if you're running a membership or if it's a one-off course and things like that. So
Yep.
don't get discouraged. I mean, that's why everyone's like, oh, social media, it has changed a lot over the years and it will continue to change because at the end of the day, it really is there for businesses to make money with ads and those type of things. It's getting more and more that way. So,
Yep.
go into it with open eyes, and look at it as another form of potentially acquiring a new customer or advertising your expertise or, becoming an expert or whatever it may be. But don't
Mhm.
rely on it as such because, yeah, it's a tough sort of cookie, I think, to really make a good go of it.
Yeah. One thing that I always say is I feel like I'm on social media primarily. I mean, maybe a little bit, it's changed a little bit, but primarily so that I have an online presence. I don't think I'm going to, and again, maybe this will change down the road, but I don't think I'm going to sell all of my services online. But if someone hears about me or meets me or gets referred to me, they are gonna go online and see what I'm all about. So, I think that's enough reason for me to wanna, maintain my visibility.
That's it. It's just getting people to sort of, again, find out who you are. Then
Uh-huh.
maybe they'll join your email list. And then maybe a year later, they may buy something for you. Like, the
Right.
customer journey can be really long. Think,
Yeah,
you've really got to play the long game when you're in business and especially online business because a lot of the time it just takes a really long time for that conversion to come through.
exactly. Exactly. Well, where can people find you and find out more about you?
Well, they can jump on social media. I'm at Mind Movement Health. And also my website is mindmovementhealth.com.au because I'm in Australia. So, yeah, jump on there. And then I also have a podcast that's called Mind Movement Health, and that is all about women's health and wellness. So, we dive into lots of different topics from movement and nutrition and guest experts. So, yeah, you can check that out too.
Great, and I will link everything in the show's notes. Now, I end all of my episodes by asking my guest this question. Since we talk about how running a business is basically like a workout, what is one business strength or habit you wish you had developed earlier in your career?
I would say being tougher with my boundaries, really,
Yep.
um, is probably the biggest one. I said yes too many times to too many different things that if I'd been really focused on, guarding my energy and thinking realistically, is this going to move my business forward or is this really just a distraction or a step to the side? I wouldn't have said yes. So, yeah, being, I guess, really clear with my boundaries and really clear with the direction I wanted to take my business.
Yeah. Those are great. You didn't even have to think about it.
Well,
No, that's awesome, and it is one I definitely hear often, and I swear every time someone, you know, says answers this question at all, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, that one too. Yeah, that one too." So, yeah, it's all about learning, and you can't know what you don't know.
exactly right, and I think I would be the same, like, if somebody else did something different, I'd be like, "Yeah, that was me as well, I did that at some point." I think, when you're in business for so long, you've probably done everything anyway.
Exactly, and then done it all wrong at least once, so, that's a learning curve for a reason. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Kate.
So having me on the show. I always love
Yeah.
chatting about business and connecting with other business owners. So it's been great.
Yes, it's been great to have you, and like I said, I'll link all of Kate's information in the show notes, and if you like today's episode, subscribe, leave a review, share it with a friend, and, submit your questions to Leslie at thefitnessofbusiness.com. We'll see you next time. Bye.